Hey guys, welcome back to another episode. Jebber Game and Jaws here. Wanted to come to you guys with a new video, and I wanted to talk about my personal rules for gaming and collecting. They're not hard and fast rules. A lot of these are kind of guidelines, things that I've put in place for myself. And it's not so much that I need to adhere to these things as much as I want to, because they greatly enhance my enjoyment of the hobby, both hobbies really, because gaming and collecting are, there's a lot of overlap, but they are very separate in my mind. So some of these will be gaming related, some will be collecting related, and some will be related to both. And without further ado, let's get started here. So my first rule for myself is to play only one or two games at a time. And I play a lot of RPGs, so it's really not smart for me to start playing a whole bunch of games. You know, if I have 3 RPGs going at one time, it's just going to lead to a bunch of frustration. I've done that before. I've made that mistake. It's not fun to go back to a game when you've been playing another game for a long time and you can't remember the battle system, or you don't know where you are, or even worse, like you can't remember what's going on with the story. It can be really, really frustrating. And so I have a rule or a guideline for myself to only play one or two games at a time. And when I do play 2 games, I try to have the second one be something maybe more like pick up and play, more like a retro platformer, something that isn't story heavy, or something that I can just pick up easily and it's not too involved. And that can be really good for getting just like, sometimes you get kind of tired of like the really deep in-depth stuff and you just need something to be like a palate cleanser to give you, just feel a little fresh. So that's a rule for myself. I don't always adhere to that rule, right? And I pay for it. A few months back, I started like playing too many games at one time, and I just was like, this is why I don't do this. It's similar to me, like if you were reading 5 novels at once. It's like you just end up stagnant in all of them, and you end up like not getting through them. If you stick with one game at a time, you can really just push hard, get through it, get everything you want out of it, and then move on to something else. So that's probably one of my most important rules for myself when it comes to gaming. Um, Now, let's see. I also like to change up the era of gaming and the genre of gaming. So I'll go like 3 months or so where I'm just super hard into modern gaming. Like I'm just playing modern games back to back to back. But then inevitably I get to this point where I'm kind of burned out on that. And that's when I will switch to playing like Super Nintendo or PlayStation 1. And a lot of times I'll just play something like that for a few months back to back. I like the old school RPGs and I like the new school RPGs. I like the old school platformers. I like the new school action games. There's a lot of different types of games, and again, it just keeps things really fresh to be jumping back and forth between different genres and different eras of gaming. Um, let's see. Another rule that I have for myself when it comes to collecting is that I always want to be actually gaming more than I am focusing on collecting. So to me, collecting is fun because of gaming, but I never want collecting to be something that is like its only thing that I'm doing. I like I like to buy games, and then I like to play whatever out of those games that I bought that I really want to play. It's not like I feel like I have to play every single game that I buy, because I do think that there's a part of collecting where like you can want to have a complete set for a specific console, and that doesn't mean that you have to play every single one of those games. It's cool if you can. It's cool if you can at least try them. But I don't feel like you absolutely have to. But if you really like to collect, then it makes sense that you would, go for a complete set of something. But absolutely, I just think that I've had a lot of friends who they spend so much time on the internet looking at videos, looking at reviews, looking up different games, looking up different ways to play games. They have all this knowledge about games, but they don't play them. And that's just something that I don't want to do. I love to play games. And I want that to be at the forefront for me, the most important thing about this hobby. Another rule that I have for myself when playing a game, modern games do this all the time where they have difficulty scaling and you can choose usually between like easy, normal, hard, very hard. So for myself, I like to start a game out and I get a feel for it. I generally start with normal or hard. I don't generally go to very hard. I never go with easy anymore. So generally normal or hard is like a good thing. I will start out at one of those. I'll see how it feels. And if it feels okay, then I'll commit to it and I'll start playing the game. What I absolutely just can't let myself do is later in the game when things get a little more difficult, it's always very tempting to scale it back down and just like blaze through something and then go back up or, whatever. And I'm like, that's so dirty. It really makes me miss the times of like older games where it was just, you were stuck. You had to put in the time, you had to do the grind and get through it if you wanted to continue on in the game. And that's just so much more satisfying. And I have nothing against anybody who doesn't do that. I mean, games are all about enjoyment. So all of these rules, again, are just my own personal rules, and it's literally rules that I have myself to keep myself enjoying the games that I want to play to the max. I want to get the most enjoyment. So for me, if I stick with something really hard and push through, I just get a lot more enjoyment because it's so much more satisfying. If I turn down the difficulty and blaze through something that's giving me trouble, it just makes you feel like crap, honestly. Another rule for myself, and this is important, so like, get a game, give it some time. If it's a bad game or you just don't like it, don't play it. That's a hard thing for me because I believe so much in, setting out, and I like to have complete experiences. It's really hard for me to start something and not finish it, but that's why I kind of give myself, the first few hours to kind of do like a test run and see like, how am I liking this? How is this going to go for me? Is this something that's worth continuing on? And if I've played a game for more than 5 hours, then basically I'm planning to finish it. It's very rare that I play a game and I don't finish them. I really get satisfaction out of putting a game in, playing it all the way, and then being able to finish it and put it on the shelf and know that whole thing is just absolutely done. And I love to replay games, so it's not like I'll just leave it there forever, but going back and just knowing that at least one time I put that game in, played it from front to back, and its completion. Let's see. So for retro games, specifically, this applies, I only use original hardware and original software. I don't use emulation. I don't use EverDrives. I don't like them. I don't want them. There's no part of me that gets enjoyment out of having hundreds or thousands of games suddenly appear on, an EverDrive or something like that. I've noticed that some people almost seem like they feel like they can't play games until they have everything. And to me, I love to always be looking at the next game that I want to play. And then while I'm playing my current game or two, have a plan formulating about how and when and where I'm going to acquire the next game that I want. So, if I was to get an EverDrive for a system, it would totally knock the wind out of me. Like, I would lose so much of the enjoyment of playing those games. And one of the things that I get a great experience too, another rule for myself, is that I try to get complete in box of mostly everything. For some of the systems like the Nintendo and the Super Nintendo, that's harder. I still like to get those complete, but for stuff like the PlayStation, the Saturn, the Dreamcast, the GameCube, a lot of the systems, PS2, I only buy complete in box games. I don't mess around with disc only or whatever. I don't buy Sega Genesis games that don't have the box. I only buy boxed Genesis games. And that just brings so much more enjoyment to me, and it reminds me so much of just being a kid. It's such a nostalgic thing, but it's just such a part of the experience too, and it's hard to explain if you don't understand it. But if you do understand it, if that is something that's important to you, then you get it. There's nothing better than like buying a complete package, reading the back, looking at all the pictures, opening it up, going through that process, pull it out, you look at the inserts, you think about, do I want to send away for this? And then you look through the booklet and you're like learning about the game and maybe reading about the story, looking at some more pictures that are in there. And then it's like this whole process that leads up to then putting the game in. And it's just something that I love, and I love to have that experience nowadays. When I buy a complete in-box Super Nintendo game, I'm just like, oh, it's like I'm literally back in the early 90s going and buying a game. But it's not only with that, it's with anything, honestly. Like, I love my, complete PlayStation games, and it has nothing to do with rarity or value. It really has to do with just the experience. So that's another rule for myself. Another thing, along with only using original hardware or software for my retro games, I play all my retro games on a CRT. And for me, that just kind of is like recreating the most authentic experience possible for the retro console. So it's like my Super Nintendo at the time would have been hooked up to a CRT, and it's kind of like there's a lot of ways that you can do upscalers and put them on modern televisions, and if people like to do that, then that's cool. But for me, I get way more enjoyment to actually put it on a CRT. Plus, I think there are just some things like I really enjoy authentic scan lines. A lot of the times new things will have like scan line generators, which I'm not a big fan of. I love authentic scan lines. I just think they're beautiful. I think they give it like such a unique look. And I also really appreciate that a lot of the platformers, you never deal with any lag. That's really nice with a CRT. Just something that I really love. CRTs just have a warm glow to them for me, and it's very nostalgic, and it feels very appropriate to have old systems playing on the TVs that they were made for, what the developers intended for it to be on. So for me, that's something that I really like and enjoy, and I do, and I'm glad that I do that. All right. I try to keep games, and I try to stay ahead of myself with having games to play. So I try to always make sure that I have a stack of games, maybe 3 or 4 at least, that I want to play. They can be different types of games, but that way I never hit this point where I just literally have nothing to play. I'm always looking up what's coming out. I'm looking up old games. I'm getting reviews. Like, there's nothing worse than just being like, oh, I'm so in the mood to dive into a game, play something really awesome, and you just don't have anything. That's really, really not fun. Obviously, I don't run into that very often anymore, but it's because I really like to have a surplus of things to play. So that's an important rule for myself that I do pretty well with, actually. So anyways, guys, again, these rules are more like guidelines for myself, and it's really just about how I enjoy this hobby. Your rules and guidelines for yourself could be completely different. You could say, I only play retro games on a modern TV because the CRT I hate, or I don't like scan lines, or whatever. You could say, I emulate or I use EverDrives because I think it's foolish to spend money on a single cartridge when I could buy an EverDrive that has hundreds or thousands of games on it. So, everybody has their own way of enjoying this hobby, and I think that's what's so cool about gaming too, and collecting and all of this. You can kind of morph it and make it exactly what you want, and to fit your needs, and also to fit your means, whatever you are able to put into it. So let me know what you guys think. Let me know what your own rules are for yourself when it comes to gaming and collecting. All right, guys, hope you have a good one. Later.